am going to cover some best practices and tips to be able to help you submit your grant application. What we're going to be discussing, brief introduction. My name is Latoya Ratliff. I'm the Director of Grants here at Hello Alice. I've been with the organization now for 3 years, and I'm leading really amazing programs like the Up and Running Grant, as well as other programs for small business owners where we've given away $56 million in total. We're going to be covering today are grant app fundamentals, how you can write your narrative, how you can use AI effectively, because it's a really popular tool right now and you've got to be able to use it correctly. And then also covering some elements of the eBay Up and Running application. And then from there, hopefully we'll have some time for questions. So let's go ahead and jump in. Again, that's my introduction. We'll skip that part. But first, we're going to talk about the grant app fundamentals. And these are kind of the core, they're different elements of the grant, but there are certain core elements that you should really focus on when you're applying. And particularly the terms and condition is going to be a really important place for you to visit and peruse before you actually start to apply. Those elements are the eligibility, requirements, review criteria, and timeline. And when you're looking at these elements, you should be thinking of one for eligibility first before you take your time to dedicate to submitting this application, because it is a process. Do you meet the eligibility criteria? Is this a program that you're actually qualified for? And if you're able to cover those and you're eligible to apply, the next thing you want to understand is what do you need in order to submit this application. Luckily, you do not have to upload documentation or provide a very detailed budget or go into details about expenses and different things, but you do have certain questions that you'll need to be able to answer. And the first thing that you'll have to do from there is be able to go in and start to talk about how actually you're going to fill out those requirements. And then next from there, it's the review criteria. And this is particular information that the reviewers are actually going to be looking for. And I see a comment, someone said they were how to tell your business story. So we're going to have a portion of that that's going to cover the actual narrative response, what you'll be able to use. Right now, we're just covering the fundamentals to make sure that everyone has things covered for the actual application itself. And then also the timeline. When does the application close? What the review process looks like? And then also how much time do you have before they're going to announce? From there, so this is the terms and conditions, and these are the particular eligibility requirements. This is where you're going to, and in each of in the application itself, it is linked to the terms and conditions in which actually goes into the eligibility. And this is where you'll see the particular elements. For this program, you have to be a current eBay seller for 6 months with an active listing. You have to be located in the United States, and then you cannot be a recipient of a previous round. It's pretty simple. There are some additional review criteria that's there, but it's really, really simple. And you're able to actually be able to verify that information, of course, with your eBay registration. Next, we're going to talk about just the requirements. And this is the portion of the application to where you're going to have like your ideal candidate section. This is where you're going to determine one, am I eligible for this? And what we'll need for that is to be able to confirm that yes, you are a seller, and then provide a link to your seller ID and the information for your seller ID. From there, the most important part. So this is where you actually dive into the narrative responses and where you're going to take the time to actually go into detail about what your origin story is. And this is where you're going to talk about telling that business story, to telling about who you are. And this is how you're going to be able to provide that response to convey to reviewers in order as they review your application. This information, we do have a slide that's going to cover a really great example of narrative responses as well as how to use AI to improve it. So we'll dive a little bit more into that later. And then next, this is the review criteria. This is really, really important because this is actually how your applications are scored. So when you're completing those narrative responses, what you'll see is that the review criteria that's tied to each of the narrative questions. There's 3 in total, and this is your need for funds to enhance your online and digital presence. It's the clarity and feasibility of the plan for the funds, and this is where you really dive into how you're going to use this fund to grow your business, and then your commitment as a seller to growth and achievement. And you'll see particularly how these are actually weighted. So you'll see for instance, for the first criteria, it's 40% versus for demonstrate and commitment, it's 25%. What this doesn't mean is that when you're going in and you're submitting your application or submitting those narrative responses that you put more emphasis. You want to give strong responses for each, but what it does just let you know how they're going to be weighted when reviewers are looking at it. Next, you have the timeline, and this just lets you know, again, gives you an idea of when the application closes so that you know when you need to be there to submit it, what the review period is going to be, and when the announcement is. If these dates ever change, you can always be able to go back to the terms and condition that links in a program to be able to find that information. And now we're going to talk about writing your narrative. And this is where you address those questions that I specifically were talking about that you saw in the most important part. How did you start selling? How is this grant going to help you accelerate and grow? And then also, what is your biggest achievement? And this right here is really where you have an opportunity to be able to shine and to be able to share your journey as a seller, why this is important to you, and how you're going to take this $10,000 and $500 refurbished credit and be able to achieve a goal that you have, a new milestone, whatever that may be. This is where you really, really get to convey that information. So it's very important that you give yourself enough time for this section and that also you give yourself a few iterations. I like to think that the first iteration, the first response I put together is the best, but sometimes it's good, but also I always realize that when I give myself enough time to revisit and redraft, I usually get an even better response. So make sure to take some time for this section. And also there's a workshop that's linked that can also help you. And then next, this is where we talk about writing your narrative. And this is also how, once we dive into it a little bit more, AI is going to actually be so helpful for you. This is a question that's taken directly from the application. Of course, you cannot use this response, but you can use it for some inspiration. The question is, how would you use a $10,000 grant to accelerate your business? What goals have you set for selling on eBay? And you share a short-term and long-term goals and break down how you would spend the grant and how each investment will help you grow. If you look at example A, it's not a bad response. It actually does answer the question, but it does it in kind of a more generic and simple way. And what's going to happen when reviewers see that response, they're going to see that you do have some plans. There is something that you have in mind for what you may be able to do should you receive the funding. But when you actually drive into it a little bit more, you don't really have clear details of what that particularly looks like. So what you want to do is looking at response B a bit more. What it does is it breaks it out appropriately. It goes into detail about how you're going to break out the actual grant without listing out a detail, because I see this sometimes where when owners are submitting applications and they're just like this kind of detailed bullet of, I'm going to spend 2,000 for marketing and then I'm going to spend 1,000 for social media, whatever that may be. What you don't want to do is do those very generic bullets. You actually want to weave it into paragraph form, similar to what we're doing here. So, and what you'll notice too is that in this particular example, it covers one, exactly how you're going to allocate it, what you're going to allocate it to, and what that impact is going to look like. Just in that first sentence, it goes through, if awarded $10,000, I'll invest 4,000. That lets them know how you're going to do it, why you're doing it, and simply because this example here is say, I have these SKUs that are really great, but they sell out every 4 to 6 weeks, which means that you do not have enough capacity to be able to get those orders out and make sure your customers are happy. And then by being able to allocate the $4,000, you're going to be able to fulfill demands and not have to worry about gaps and also improve repeat customers. And that one sentence covered 3 different elements, and that alone gives the reviewer exactly of how strategic you are about being able to use the funding, but also how knowledgeable you are about your funding operations. And what I would say, Spruce and Gussie, the response B is actually 300 words. So you do have an idea. If you look at this response here, and we'll go through AI soon, it'll be able to show you how to craft a response that will fall within those characters. And I know it would be great to get 500 words, and for some instances, yes, but I think with this particular application that you can absolutely be able to submit your response. A lot of it is just, again, doing different reiterations, using different AI services to support you, and truly being able to then narrow it down in a way so that you're providing the best cohesive response. And then next, we're going to talk about using AI effectively. There are right ways to use AI, and there are unfortunately wrong ways to use it. Some of the best ways to use it is using it as a means to organize your thoughts, because AI can truly help you be able to tell a story and help you yourself clarify your ideas. And one of those ways is using AI not in a way of, hey, here's a question on an application, and we'll go more into do's and don'ts in the next slide, but instead of using it as a, I have a question on an application. I need 300 words. Can you give me a response? You should never, ever do that, because yes, it's going to actually give you a response, but what it's going to do, it's going to give you a generic response that's really not going to capture who you are as an owner and capture all the passion and all the work and knowledge that you have that you put into your business. So what you want to do is use it as a means to start organizing your thoughts. If it's very simple bullets to say, hey, I've been selling on eBay for X amount of years. This is the category I sell. I'm a part-time seller. What I see myself doing in the short term is I want to achieve this. In the long term, I want to achieve this. I have a grant for $10,000. I'm applying for a grant for $10,000. And here are the responses that I put in place for each of the questions. Can you help me take these responses based on the additional points that I gave you and actually improve upon? And what that does is it gives AI a background of who you are. And then also it's going to use your own words to be able to craft a response that actually sounds like you and that can give you a really good narrative representation. So and then from there, you're able to edit it for tone and impact. This is really great because you want to make sure that you're refining the language. So one, it sounds human, and two, that also the phrasing just flows naturally. If you'll see that example I provided for B, you have a natural flowing response that actually covers everything that you need versus just this very kind of stagnant response. And what you want to do is make sure that the reviewer, when they're reading your application, that they're excited to learn about you. That at every step when they're going through these narrative responses, you're just building upon all the amazing information you've already shared. And then lastly, to elevate your application, get feedback before submitting. And I know this is like an additional step and you've already done the work, you've reworked it, but before you're submitting it, and sometimes it's so amazing, you can prompt it and say, is there anything else that I missed? Is there anything else that reviewers are going to read and then feel like they haven't been able to answer? And the AI service will actually be able to give you more information. And then from there, do another iteration. AI can be a really, really useful tool. It's just as long as you can do it correctly. And then in the prompts you can try, these are actually catered exactly for this program, and I hope you'll definitely use them. But one that's really big is, what questions might a reviewer have after reading this? That is so important because the one question that you want reviewers to have after they read your application is, wow, I want to make sure that I can connect with this business owner after we give them $10,000. So how can I go ahead and be able to measure their impact? So those are the only questions. You don't want them to ask, well, what are they going to do with the money and those different things. So what AI program you should use. The ones that I feel that have the free setup that are the most viable and give you the best, use ChatGPT to be able to structure your information, to set up a profile of who you are as a business owner. And that's where I shared the background of who you are as a seller, your revenue, what you sell, how you market, whatever that may be. And then use Claude, that it's also a free service, to then be able to craft your response. But again, never just drop the question into like the space. Actually go in, draft out the question using the 300 words, or at minimum about 4 to 5 sentences, and then based on these prompts that I'm sharing here, ask it to be able to approve it for you. And then these are just some do's and don'ts that are really helpful. One, always start with your own words. Use it to tighten your message and make sure to keep your responses human and honest. At the end of the day, AI services are really, really great, but depending on how you use it, it's going to be able to give you, the reviewer, an idea of who you are as a human. And what you want to do is have that emotion connected to your application, because it truly does leave a lasting impact. There are times where I review hundreds of applications in a day, just going through and reading about small business owner. And I can be able to vividly circle back and remember some of the applications I first started reading hours ago. And it's just because how that the applicant was able to connect with me. As far as don'ts, we already covered do not paste the question into AI. Another thing to be very careful about is overuse buzzwords. There is something that happens, especially with ChatGPT, that there's certain terminology and words that are overused. So what you can actually do is when you're doing the prompts and you're getting ready to submit, you can actually say, hey, ChatGPT, I really like this response, but are there certain words in here that you crafted for me that are actually overused? And it'll then reiterate and give you a response so those words aren't quickly identified and then you're not going to sound like other owners that are just using it not to its full capacity. And we're running a little behind, so I'm going to just go through. These are not as important. I'll slide back into the most important part. And just because, again, these are the narrative responses. This is where the first question where you talk about your owner story. This is set up simply here just because we want to be able to give you an idea, give us an idea of who you are as a seller. This is where you use AI, and you can use, even if you don't use AI, you truly dive into what prompted you to start this. Why was this important for you to begin selling on eBay? Whether it's you grew up in an entrepreneurship family, maybe you worked in corporate and you decided that you wanted to venture out on your own. Use this particular section here to truly tell the story of that moment that made you excited about becoming an entrepreneur, because that's a really, really big accomplishment. I love working what I do and working with entrepreneurs, but I myself am not an entrepreneur. So there's so much that I can learn from you as a seller about what this experience looks like. And while you're creating your application, using this as your first introduction into being able to tell your story to reviewers is such a really, really big component. So use those prompts I shared with you with AI. Make sure you can refer back to that example B, which actually does convey and break down the difference between a good response and a powerful response. And then from there, you'll be able to submit a really, really good application. And then these are just elements of the application. Again, I'm so sorry. I was hoping we would be able to go through each in more detail, but I want to give enough time for questions and for Sergi to speak. But this is just kind of the final portion of the application to where you review if you have any conflicts of interest, and then also submit the application from there. And then before we jump to questions, I think we can let Sergi speak, and then I think we'll have time for additional questions later on.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sergey. I've been selling on eBay since 2021, and I was one of the 2024 grant selected as one of the 50 winners. Over 18,000 applicants, and today I want to tell you how I approached my application, what helped me to stand out, how I share a few things. I want to share with you a few things that I learned that might help you as well. So my story is short. My business is built around the idea of giving things a second life. Um, Basically, I working with the used, salvage broken items, even new items. I test them, clean them up, and list them on eBay. Those parts could be ends up in the landfill, pollution, and adding pollution to the waste. But instead of this, you know they go back to the use, help people to finish project or equipments to repair. It's not just about selling, it's about sustainability and purpose, and I'm enjoying this. When I wrote my application, I kept it simple. I did not use big words, like try to sound impressive. I just told my story as it is. I explained it what I do, and for every day, day by day, what I believe into, and what is very important to me, and how the grant will help me to grow. So, like sourcing better parts, expanding storage and improving workflow. I also mentioned that I wanted to give it back to the community, to share what I'm learning along the way, since I'm selling this for a long time. Here's what I recommend if you would probably interested in to hear. From honest, to be honest, real stories stick. Show people who you are, what is your business matters to, what exactly you're doing. Be specific. Say exactly what you'll do with the grant. Inventory, equipment, software, space. Be clear about it. Keep it simple. Just explain what you do and how you'll do the better. You do need to be. You don't need to be a writer. Just be straightforward, and most of all, be yourself. Your experience, your voice, your style. That what makes your application strong. If you tried before and you didn't get it, don't let us stop you. Do it again. Um, this grant didn't just help me financially, it helped me expand storage, optimize how I run things, and source better parts. Um, with that support, I also started a local eBay group, so I have more time, uh, and later become a mentor in the community. So if you have any questions, I'm always glad to answer in community support. I think I got selected because I keep it real. Keep it real. I show exactly what I do and how a grant will help me move forward, especially in the hard time. I have a family relative medical issues, so you can find me on on eBay as a sell for fun or any social media as a go as far as you can see. Well, thanks so much, and I really want to hear if you guys have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer you.
Thank you, Sergey. That was actually really, really good advice, and that covered everything. And exactly, I want to just second what he was saying. Again, you know how to tell your story. Becoming an entrepreneur means that you take a leap of faith and that you know why you're doing it, and you're just able to try to convey that passion into the application and keep it simple. You don't have to use very big words. It's not an essay that you have to complete, but just make sure that you're talking about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and what it's going to accomplish. And if you can give those elements, and then, like I said, use any, like maybe an AI service or any other service or any, actually just a friend, and just have them review it and read through it and let you know feedback. It makes all the difference.
If there's any questions, doesn't look like we have any questions, Latoya.
Someone said, am I a seller even if prior today I haven't sold in years but listed something this week? So as long as the eligibility is as long as you've been on the platform for 6 months and you have an active listing, you should be eligible. But if you do have any questions and about, just to confirm that, the eBay support team is available, and also the Hello Alice support team is available to help you. And I think Jake actually provided that. So um how many applications do you receive on? Am I supposed to? Oh, sorry. I think that's it for the questions. I went through, there were just three, and there were a few that were in chat. So if there are any additional question, just let us know.
I got great message. Somebody sharing. Yeah, everything is possible. I moved myself to United States in 1997, and I started selling on eBay in 2000. My sentence of all my social media is go as far as you can see. That's mean like you can everybody. Now there's nothing stop people's. Everybody can go as far as really can go as far as you can see. Do as much as they can. This is your life, and very big thank you to Hello Alice and eBay to support my business. I was not even expecting to when I received the phone call right in the middle of the day and tell me that I'm the winner. That was so impressive.
I think I actually talked, and sorry, Sergi, just really quick, I want to, before we have to jump to the networking sessions, Jill asked, are the application viewed by humans, AR, both? They are viewed by humans. This is really important to us. There are a filtering system based on eligibility, but we actually take the time with a group of judges and reviewers that are trained to be able to review the application and align with the goals of the program and give you a direct review and assistance when you're going. Someone else, Raquel, asked if you, I think she was just saying she didn't realize this program was open to all sellers. And yes, this program is open to all sellers that meet those eligibility requirements. You do not have to be saving the planet. Just be passionate about what you're doing on eBay and how you want to improve your business. Do you need to have a federal tax ID? You do not need to have a federal tax ID before you apply. That is available. There's a question that asks for it, but it's not a requirement.
Well, if does anyone have any no more questions, I'll probably hop up with the Intuit work session. I will going to be speak with the king of eBay regarding media and advertisement. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to join us, Kings of eBay, and Daniel will be sharing our experience. Thanks so much, Latoya. I do appreciate you give me chance to speak, and thanks and good luck everyone on this application.
Bye. Thanks, Sergi. Thanks, everyone. Good luck.